Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. I'm Wayne Tuttle, your host once again. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, leave a comment if you got a comment. Visit our website at www.legendofsuperstitionmountains.com. Coming soon in the next following weeks, we will let you know. We'll have a little special presentation to go along with it. Should be the Lost Dutchman Mine story on history's greatest mysteries. We can only hope that's going to come about. It should be a good episode. Until then, we share with you this story today. This story goes a bit back, goes into the area of the Rincon Mountains, down by Benson, Mescal. If you're not familiar with it, it's east of Tucson, north of the highway. Trevor, myself, and Greg Davis were out in that area. I wanted, and I was very interested in wanting to kind of explore that area. I didn't find any way to really run up there. We didn't have the time allotted. We spent time in Wilcox, and we spent time at Cochise Stronghold and some other areas. We were not to get able to get up in there, which it would take several days to kind of investigate and look at background to the story. But I did kind of go around and was looking at the Rincon Mountains, and I had this story in mind. Now, first time I heard of this story, an older gentleman, his name was not Francisco. I don't remember his name, but his nephew was Francisco, and Francisco and I were acquainted. And Francisco brought his uncle, can't remember his name, and he would talk about, he only spoke really Spanish, very little broken English. But he would come by because he liked my treasure maps and the stuff I had. He was very interested in the history stuff. So Francisco would kind of interpret between the two of us as we talked about various things. He would go over maps. Wasn't so much translating, but kind of, hey, what do you think of this? Have you seen anything like this? He was into a lot of that stuff. And he kind of told me this story without all the specifics, but I remembered it. And the story kind of goes this way, and I believe that Thomas Penfield and others have done a story on it. There's a group of padres in the story. I believe they have to be probably Jesuits because of certain things involved in the story. And they're traveling looking to set a place up for kind of a ranchera, to have cattle and stuff along the river. Not necessarily maybe a mission, but to kind of establish another foothold somewhere north of where they were at the time, which would be San Xavier and Tumacacori, which I think Tumacacori might have been done by then. So anyways, they're up and they follow in the river around, and they don't really find anything. It's a thick area, thick with Apaches, and they have a bunch of Pimas with them, and they have a kind of a large caravan. They never really find what they're looking for, but while they're going and traveling, they find several places that are loaded with gold and silver. They bring a lot to get a lot of samples. They fill a lot of pack saddles with this very rich, good ore, silver and gold. After they realize, well, we got to get back, we're going to run out of supplies, we need to work back, they start coming back. As they're in a pass going through the Rincon Mountains heading back to the mission, a group of Apaches descend upon them. And the Apaches, because they have the higher ground and so forth, take advantage, and they grab a lot of the horses, the burros, they kill a few people, and the skirmish is going on. But the Padres, the priests, and the Pimas have the superior firepower. And because of this, they start pushing the Apaches back. Sensing the advantage, they push them back up into this canyon. And the Apaches take refuge in this alcove, shallow cave area. And they start grabbing their horses and stuff and getting back up in there, thinking they'll have some higher ground. But they find themselves in a situation where they're boxed in and have no place to go. At which time, the group down below with the Pimas, because the Pimas absolutely hated and despised the Apaches, continue just firing round after round after round and ricocheting and everything. And the Apaches are just being decimated. While they have the upper hand, they also realize they're at a distinct disadvantage if other Apaches hear anything and come into the area, because they would be in a disadvantaged position if more Apaches were drawn. So they realize we've pushed them back. They're pretty much almost finished. We're going to cut our losses. We're going to head out of here. So they gather what they can in the area, a few loose horses and stuff, and they make their way back to the mission. They get back to the mission, which could have been San Xavier, could have been Tumacacori, but we'll figure it's one of the two probably. And they get in and they tell them what happened. And they said that we found this gold source and all this. A lot of it's lost to time, exactly what transpired, but what seems to in general happen is the Apache problem was so bad, and because of the losses they took, it wasn't considered a good idea to go back out. And that was the end of that story, the first part. Well, the second part is many years later, ranchers have come up into the area, Wilcox, Benson, all those areas down south of Rincon and around the Rincon Mountains. There's quite a number of large ranches that operated, and some still do. So the cattle ranchers out there, well, two Mexican cowboys, two vaqueros, are back up in the mountains chasing a calf. Now this happens a lot. We hear a lot of stories, and it's not just the tall tale kind of to the story. They would be chasing cattle or calves back into brushy areas, get them into box canyons, follow them back, and the cows would do amazing things. If you think about it, the Joe Deering story had a similar thing with his burros going up. And I think the reason that Jimmy Anderson found what's called the Anderson-Ely Trail was he was chasing some loose cattle that had gotten up, and he found the trail that went up to the top of Bluff Springs. So they find this calf, and this calf is up, and they see this kind of cave and this alcove, and they're like, hey, what's that? So they rope up the calf, they get it, they dismount, and they kind of go back and start checking this place out. And as they approach it, they find there's bones everywhere, and they realize there's horse bones, there's burro bones, and then they realize there's human bones. And additionally, there's a lot of ash in the area. Who knows why? Maybe campfires or something from that fight, or the Apaches that had been left behind or who had been injured had fires up in there. Well, there's this superstition, and Francisco's uncle talked about it, that if there's ash, generally it's considered that the treasure will turn to ash if the wrong person approaches it, kind of like a curse. So if you kind of like the leprechaun pot of gold type of thing, if you approach it and you're not of the good heart, or you're not of family lineage, you have no right to the treasure. The treasure, when you go for it, will turn to ash. Additionally to this, it's a superstition that's carried on because they found a number of families would bury coins, valuables from their family and stuff, but when they would bury them, because of this superstition, they would take and put a good sizable group of ashes over the treasure or whatever they concealed, so that if someone was digging and they hit the ash thinking they were going to find something, they'd think, oh, it turned to ash on me, and they would just give up on the hole. So that was actually something that was very realistic, people would do, and Francisco's uncle was very superstitious. We had long talks on things like that, and chupacabras and a lot of stuff. So they really believed in these superstitions wholeheartedly, even though he explained people would do that to deter people from going in. So I was kind of puzzled, like, so you do it on purpose, even though you believe it is a real thing, you also do it on purpose to keep people from getting to it. Yes. So the Mexicans find, what they find, and they go, well, it's cursed. It's turned to carbon, which is, I think carbon is ashes in Spanish, something similar. So they realize, it's turned to ash. We don't want nothing to do with it. They take the calf, they go back to the ranch. When they get back to the ranch, they talk to their employer, the ranch owner and the foreman, and they tell them, we found this cave up in there. We want nothing to do with it, because they believe there's a curse or something associated with it. But they gave them directions and said, if you guys go up there, you'll find this and you'll see this, and there's all these bones and stuff. And the ranchers followed their directions very closely and very clearly, and they couldn't find anything. And the story's held since then. So it's gone on, and the fact that Francisco's uncle actually knew the story pretty well. I don't think he read Penfield or Oscar Branson or any other treasure writer's works. So the fact that he knew and had an oral history of this tells me it was kind of a story out there. Now the Rincons, it's interesting because they are not gold or silver bearing. It's a kind of a dead zone type mountain area. There's some copper deposits around the area and all, but it's not considered conducive to prospecting in that. But the story is they were somewhere else and then followed back and were going through the pass in the Rincon Mountains. So if you're up in the Rincon Mountains, which is a beautiful country, it's very rugged. There's a lot of trail systems and so forth, but you find yourself in an area and find a cave area. Go up, there'd probably still be some remaining bones and tack and things laying in there, some metal pieces, and somewhere in there should be the gold or whatever. Buried or not, or whatever came of it, I have no idea. I've never heard a story of anyone recovering anything in that area, and I don't think I've heard any modern versions or tales of that story. But we were down there. I was interested because I kind of like getting that look, feel of those things. So a little bit is shared on the superstitions side of it. We learned if you're digging in something and you find a bit of ash, probably didn't turn to ashes, but it could be something's buried below those ashes. People will understand who have known me and gone out. I always dig in a lot of fire pit areas and stuff. Now, if I find ash, I will dig below the ash. Not necessarily for treasure, but I always try to measure how much time and how long those fire pits have possibly been there by the depth of the ashes and the ground being heated. But it's good. It's a good principle to stick to. And if you dig below the ash level, you may find yourself some treasure. Perhaps. You might find yourself some ore. And last of all, because of the locations of Tumakakori and Xavier del Bac, I would say very, very good chance that the story's probably true and they were out looking for cattle grazing areas and so forth. And this could have very well happened. I have the military journals, a number of them that talk that even the United States military would travel and pick up prospects. They would spend a day or two in a camp and prospect and placer mine just to look at the gold. And part of their reports were always whether they found a little silver or gold in a number of locations, though they were looking for areas to graze cattle or water supplies or depots. So, and that's an excellent book. It's a book primarily having to do with Cochise and Cochise's surrender, but it has a lot of the military journals of that area. So you get to hear about the Rincon Mountains and Cochise stronghold in a lot of that area. So sometime I'll do a little review on that book. I've been working my way through it, but it's journals and letters and material from their travels. And it tells you a lot about the exploration of the area and locations in certain spots. So there you go. Hope everybody enjoyed that story this week. We got a number of ones. We're probably going to take you down a journey through Europe, Spain and France, and a number of places. And that seems very interesting. Like I said, and I've promised, as the History's Greatest Mysteries show shows up, we will show my activity and my participation in that and do a narrative with filming that I did on my own of preceding the program and then after the program. So it should be some interesting things, a little different, but kind of a little more travelogue, but we'll do some of that through the summer as we get through the hot summer. Hope everybody's minding it well. We're up in the hundreds and hitting the 110s now. So our necessarily outdoor hiking expeditions are kind of very, very kind of like few and far between now as we finish the summer. But we have plenty of time to review other things. Trevor's working on the bark notes, so look forward to those, because more of those will be published, and we will work on an audio version of that, and in chapters release that to the website, and probably with some sort of still photography or B-roll, so you can enjoy that for your listening pleasures. And that'll be different than the Chasing Legends Friday Lives. We'll probably do those once they're done on a Wednesday or something to give you something additional to listen to. So thank you for participating. Please, again, hit subscribe and hit the notification bells and visit the website and kind of show us a little bit of love so we know you're all out there. I'm seeing the rise in things, but always let us know what you're interested in, and I do hear you, and there's a few things I have written down, including the sleeping squaw, and we will be getting into some of those treasure stories here soon this summer. So thank you for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful and great week. And until the next time, always remember, I'm Wayne Tuttle, you're not, and this was Chasing Legends.